fire devoured the forest. The sky bled red. Animals screamed as flames climbed ancient trees like hungry demons. And, in the middle of the inferno, a young Omega girl ran toward the fire instead of away from it. Her dress was already burning. Her lungs were collapsing from smoke. But she kept running, because somewhere inside the flames, a terrified wolf pup was crying for help. Far beyond the forest, inside a fortress of black stone, a feared alpha king suddenly dropped to one knee. Pain ripped through his chest. A bond he had never felt before ignited beneath his skin. Something was happening. Something impossible. And, before the night ended, a dying Omega would stop the heart of the most feared king in the kingdom. Golden flames in the darkness. He looked directly at her. And for the first time since the assassination attempt, King Kael Draven was fully conscious. He remembered the poison, the betrayal, the blood, the faces of those who wanted him dead. Yet none of that mattered. Not in this moment. Because the scent filling the room stole every thought from his mind. Moonlight, winter, destiny. His pulse stopped. No. Impossible. That scent belonged to an ancient legend. A bond thought extinct for centuries. Yet somehow, the girl sitting beside the fire carried it. Kael stared at Elara. Shock rippled through his soul. Because somewhere deep within his instincts, he knew. And what he knew terrified him more than death. The moon bond had awakened. And fate had finally found its missing half. Death should have taken her. Every royal healer in Draven believed it. The Omega girl had been pulled from the ashes with burns across her body, smoke poisoning her lungs, and a heartbeat so weak it barely existed. Yet somehow, she refused to die. Outside the fortress, rain battered the black stone walls for 3 straight nights. Thunder rolled endlessly across the mountains. The kingdom slept beneath storm clouds. But inside the royal infirmary, nobody slept. Especially not the king. King Kael Draven sat beside her bed like a shadow carved from darkness. Motionless. Silent. Watching. The healers came and went. The servants whispered. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Because for 3 days, the Alpha King had not left. Not once. Not to eat. Not to rest. Not even to attend council meetings. The most feared ruler in the kingdom remained beside a stranger whose name he didn't even know. And nobody understood why. Not even Kael. The glowing mark beneath his wrist had faded after bringing her to the castle. But he could still feel it. Like a thread wrapped around his soul. Invisible. Unbreakable. Dangerous. Every time she struggled for breath, pain tightened inside his chest. Every time her heartbeat weakened, something inside him became restless. It made no sense. And Kael hated things he couldn't control. Especially emotions. The last time emotions controlled him, he had buried his mate. And his unborn child. The memories slammed into him unexpectedly. Blood. Snow. Screams. The smell of iron. A lifeless hand slipping from his grasp. His jaw tightened. Years had passed. Yet the wound remained open. Invisible. Rotting beneath layers of armor and authority. The kingdom called him ruthless. Cold. Heartless. They didn't understand. Monsters weren't born. They were created. A soft whine interrupted his thoughts. Ash sat beside the bed. The wolf pup refused to leave. 3 days. 3 nights. The little creature remained curled beside the unconscious Omega. As though protecting her. Waiting for her. The same way Kael was. The realization irritated him. Yet he couldn't deny it. He was waiting too. Waiting for those silver lashes to flutter open. Waiting for answers. Waiting for something he couldn't explain. The storm outside intensified. Lightning illuminated the room. And then, movement. Tiny. Almost imperceptible. Kael's body stiffened. The girl's fingers twitched. Ash immediately jumped to his feet. Another movement. A breath. Then slowly, painfully, her eyes opened. Soft silver. Like moonlight trapped beneath ice. Confused. Fearful. Alive. For several seconds, she simply stared upward. Disoriented. Lost. Then, her gaze shifted. Finding Kael. Everything changed. Fear flooded her expression instantly. Real fear. Not because she recognized him personally, because she recognized what he was. An alpha.
A king.
The Alpha King. The monster from every story whispered across the kingdom. Elara tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her body. A cry escaped her lips. She collapsed back onto the mattress. Don't move. Kael's voice was low, commanding, instinctively powerful. The sound alone could make warriors obey. Elara froze. Her pulse quickened. The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too dangerous. Kael noticed. Of course he noticed. Fear had a scent, and hers filled the room. A strange disappointment settled inside him. Everyone feared him, yet for some reason, he hadn't wanted her to. Where? She whispered weakly. Her throat was raw, burned from smoke. Draven Keep. The answer made her face pale. Every child in the kingdom knew that name. The fortress of the Alpha King. A place where legends were born. And nightmares. Panic flashed across her face. She tried sitting again. Failed again. Ash suddenly bounded onto the bed. The tiny wolf immediately pressed himself against her chest. Elara blinked.
Surprised.
Then smiled. A small smile. Fragile, but real. The sight hit Kael unexpectedly, like sunlight piercing clouds after years of darkness. For a brief moment, the room felt different. Warmer. Ash licked her face. The girl laughed softly. The sound was quiet, yet it echoed through something buried deep inside Kael. Something long forgotten. She wrapped trembling arms around the pup. You survived. Ash wagged his tail furiously. The bond between them was obvious. Instant. Natural. As if they had known each other forever. Then Elara looked up, meeting Kael's eyes. The smile vanished immediately. Tension returned. Silence stretched. Neither looked away. For the first time in years, Kael found himself studying someone. Not as a ruler. Not as a threat. As a person. The Omega looked exhausted. Vulnerable. Broken. Yet there was something beneath that fragility. Something stubborn. A quiet strength hidden beneath scars. You entered the fire for him. It wasn't a question. Elara lowered her gaze. Someone had to. Simple words. But they struck harder than expected. Someone had to. No desire for praise. No demand for recognition. She had nearly died because she couldn't ignore suffering. The concept felt foreign to Kael. Almost impossible. For years he had ruled through logic. Strength. Necessity. Compassion rarely survived inside royal courts. Yet this girl had risked everything for a creature she didn't even know. And somehow, that disturbed him, because part of him admired it. The realization annoyed him. He stood abruptly. The chair scraped against stone. Elara flinched. Again. That same fear. Kael's expression hardened instantly. A familiar mask sliding back into place. The king. The monster. The untouchable alpha. Without another word, he turned toward the door. But before leaving, he paused. Just long enough to glance back. Ash remained curled against her side. And for the first time since arriving at the fortress, the pup looked content. Rest. Then Kael disappeared into the corridor.
The door closed.
Elara finally exhaled, only then realizing she'd been holding her breath. The room felt empty without him, which made absolutely no sense. She barely knew the man, yet his presence lingered. Heavy, powerful, unavoidable. Outside the infirmary, another pair of eyes watched everything. Lady Seraphine Vale. Beautiful, elegant, dangerous, hidden in shadows. She stared through the partially open doorway, watching the Omega, watching the wolf, watching the king walk away. And slowly, her smile disappeared. For years she had positioned herself beside the throne.
Patiently, carefully.
Every move calculated. Every rival eliminated. Every opportunity seized. The future belonged to her. It was supposed to. Then one burned Omega appeared from nowhere. And suddenly, the king was changing. Seraphine hated change, especially when it threatened her plans. Her gaze narrowed. The Omega wasn't powerful.
Not yet.
But power wasn't always dangerous. Sometimes influence was worse. And influence was already growing. The court had begun whispering. The servants had noticed. The guards had noticed. Even the nobles had started asking questions. Why was the king protecting her? Why had he ignored council meetings? Why had he remained beside her bed? The whispers would become rumors. The rumors would become suspicion. And suspicion could become a weapon. A very useful weapon. Seraphine's eyes darkened. She had spent too many years climbing toward the crown to let a wounded Omega destroy everything.
No.
If the girl intended to stay, she would become a problem. And Seraphine knew exactly how to deal with problems. As thunder shook the castle once more, she quietly turned away, already planning her next move, unaware that fate had begun moving pieces far older than either woman understood. And hidden deep beneath the royal archives, an ancient document waited in darkness. A document carrying a forgotten bloodline, a forgotten queen, and a secret capable of bringing an entire kingdom to its knees. The rain finally stopped, but peace never came with the sunrise. It came with silence, and silence was often far more dangerous. Draven Keep stood beneath a pale gray sky, its black towers cutting through the morning mist like the fangs of some sleeping beast. From a distance, the fortress appeared unchanged,
Strong.
unshakable, untouchable. Yet beneath its stone walls, something was shifting. Whispers, tiny at first, almost harmless. A servant mentioning the mysterious Omega. A guard questioning why the king visited her chambers every evening. A noble wondering why the wolf pup never left her side. Small things. But small things had destroyed kingdoms before. And Lady Seraphine knew exactly how to nurture them, like poison dripping slowly into a wound. She stood before her mirror while maids adjusted her silver gown. Her reflection smiled.
Perfect.
Controlled. Beautiful. But beneath that elegance lived something far colder. Because she had spent years learning a simple truth. People rarely believed facts. They believed stories. And she intended to create one. Meanwhile, Elara stood alone on a palace balcony overlooking the capital. The city stretched endlessly below. Stone streets, market squares, silver rooftops glistening beneath sunlight. She had never seen anything so beautiful or so intimidating. The kingdom felt alive, breathing, watching, judging. A cool breeze carried the scent of pine forests and distant rivers. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to enjoy it. Then she felt it. A presence.
Heavy.
Powerful. Familiar.
Kael.
The Alpha King stepped onto the balcony behind her. Instantly, the air changed. The way it always did when he entered a room. His presence wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Power surrounded him naturally, like a storm contained inside human skin. Elara turned. Their eyes met. Something strange passed between them. Something neither fully understood. That invisible thread again.
Pulling.
Tightening. Dangerous. Neither spoke immediately. The silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore, which somehow felt even more dangerous. You should still be resting. His voice was calm. Elara smiled faintly. I've rested enough. Kael's gaze lingered on the healing burns along her wrist. The scars remained. Permanent reminders of what she had done for Ash. Something inside him tightened again.
Guilt.
Respect. Possessiveness. He didn't know which. Perhaps all three. Ash suddenly raced onto the balcony. The pup immediately launched himself at Elara. She laughed, catching him effortlessly. That laugh. Kael noticed it every time. Not because it was loud. Because it wasn't. It sounded fragile. As though joy was something she rarely allowed herself. And somehow, that made it more precious. His wolf stirred inside him, watching her, wanting closer. The realization unsettled him, because his wolf hadn't wanted anything in years. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, something impossible began happening. The Monster King started changing. Not dramatically, not obviously, only in small moments. Moments nobody should have noticed. Yet everyone did. Kael began ending meetings early. Ash spent every waking hour with Elara. The king's temper became less explosive, less violent, less unpredictable. The court noticed, the guards noticed, the kingdom noticed, and rumors multiplied. Whispers became conversations. Conversations became accusations. By the end of the month, nobles openly discussed the Omega girl who had enchanted their king. Seraphine encouraged every word, quietly, carefully, patiently, because poison worked best when victims believed they had discovered it themselves. One evening, a violent storm swept across the kingdom. Thunder shook the castle. Lightning flashed beyond stained-glass windows. Inside his chambers, Kael sat alone. Sweat covered his skin. His breathing had become uneven, dangerous. His wolf was restless again. For weeks, an unfamiliar agitation had been growing inside him. A pressure he couldn't control. A hunger he couldn't silence. The room looked like a battlefield. Furniture overturned. Glass shattered. Claw marks carved into stone walls. His control was slipping. And he hated weakness, especially his own. A growl vibrated through his chest. His eyes briefly flashed gold. The beast inside him clawed against its cage, demanding release, demanding destruction. Then the door opened. Elara stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, everything changed. Silence. Not complete, but enough. The storm inside him weakened. His wolf stopped fighting. Kael froze, staring at her. Impossible, yet undeniable. She was calming him, without trying, without understanding, without fear. Elara approached slowly. Every instinct told her she should be afraid. The room practically radiated danger. But beneath the anger,
She saw pain.
and somehow that felt familiar. Because pain recognized pain. You should leave, Kael said. The warning sounded strained, almost desperate. Elara shook her head.
No.
The answer surprised them both. Kael stared. You don't understand. I think I do. Lightning illuminated the room. For a moment, neither moved. Then Elara stepped closer, and closer, until only inches separated them. The Alpha King could have crushed armies, destroyed kingdoms, killed men with his bare hands. Yet this tiny Omega somehow made him feel exposed, vulnerable,
Human.
Her hand slowly touched his arm.
Warm.
Gentle. The effect was immediate. The tension inside him unraveled, like chains breaking. For the first time in years, Kael slept peacefully that night. But peace never lasts inside royal courts, especially when powerful people fear losing control. Deep beneath the palace archives, Seraphine finally found what she had been searching for. Dust covered the ancient scroll. The parchment looked centuries old. Forgotten.
Hidden.
Dangerous. She carefully unrolled it. Her eyes scanned the faded text, then stopped. Her breath caught. For once, the mask cracked. Shock flashed across her face. The name written on the parchment changed everything. Elara, connected to a bloodline believed extinct. The first Moon Queen, the most powerful Omega in recorded history. Seraphine's heart began racing. Not from fear, from opportunity. Because if the document was real, Elara wasn't merely a threat. She was a catastrophe waiting to happen. Someone capable of challenging the throne itself. Someone the people could rally behind. Someone Kael might choose. A queen. Seraphine slowly smiled. A cold smile. The kind born from desperation. If Elara truly carried royal blood, then she had to fall. Immediately. Before the bond between King and Omega became unbreakable. Before affection became love. Before destiny finished what fate had started. The game had changed. And Seraphine intended to strike first. Far above the archives, completely unaware of the danger approaching, Elara stood beside a palace window, watching moonlight spill across the kingdom, watching stars emerge beyond the clouds. And for the first time since childhood, she felt safe, chosen,
Seen.
a dangerous feeling, because sometimes the moment a person finally finds happiness is the exact moment someone decides to destroy it. And somewhere in the darkness of the castle, Lady Seraphine began putting that plan into motion. A plan that would soon force the Alpha King to choose between his heart and his kingdom. The first lie arrived like a feather.
Light.
Harmless. Easy to ignore. The second arrived like a whisper. The third like a rumor. And by the time the 10th spread through the kingdom, it had become truth. At least in the eyes of those desperate to believe it. Winter approached Draven Keep. Cold winds swept across the mountains. Gray clouds gathered over the kingdom. And inside the palace, invisible cracks were beginning to spread. Elara noticed them first. The servants who once smiled now lowered their eyes. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Guards exchanged strange looks. Nobles openly stared. The warmth she had slowly begun to find inside the castle was disappearing. Something was wrong. She simply didn't know what. One afternoon, she entered the royal gardens carrying a basket of herbs gathered for the healers. The moment she appeared, several noblewomen abruptly stopped speaking. Their silence was loud.
Sharp.
Intentional. Elara continued walking. But she caught enough. Bewitched him. Dangerous, Omega. Using the king. Each word struck like a stone. Not because they hurt. Because they felt familiar. All her life people had feared Omegas. Distrusted them. Blamed them. No matter how kind she tried to be. No matter how careful. Nothing ever changed. For a moment, the lonely mountain girl returned. The one nobody chose. The one nobody wanted. The feeling settled heavily inside her chest. Meanwhile, Lady Seraphine watched her carefully crafted chaos bloom. The rumors had spread faster than expected.
Fear always did.
People preferred monsters they understood. Elara represented something unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things frightened kingdoms. Especially when kings started caring about them. Seraphine sat before the council chamber fireplace, sipping wine while nobles voiced growing concerns. The king's judgment has changed. His attention is divided. The Omega influences him. The people are noticing. Each accusation strengthened her position. Exactly as planned. Yet she remained outwardly calm. Reasonable. Concerned. Never cruel. Never obvious. The best manipulators rarely appeared dangerous. They appeared helpful. And Seraphine had mastered that art long ago. Still, rumors alone wouldn't be enough. The Omega remained protected. Protected by Ash. Protected by the king. Protected by something far stronger than politics.
Trust.
Trust had to die first. Several days later, snow began falling. Soft white flakes drifted across castle rooftops. The kingdom looked beautiful. Peaceful.
A lie.
Because beneath that beauty, disaster waited. Deep inside the royal library, Elara sat reading ancient texts. The first Moon Queen appeared repeatedly throughout the records. A mysterious ruler, a healer, a protector, a woman capable of calming even the wildest wolves. Something about those stories felt strangely familiar, almost personal, as though the pages were trying to tell her something. As though destiny itself waited between the lines. A shadow appeared across the table. Elara looked up.
Kael.
His presence immediately altered the atmosphere. It always did. The library suddenly felt smaller, warmer, more dangerous. Their eyes met. That invisible pull returned instantly. Stronger than before. For a moment neither spoke. The silence stretched. Comfortable. Fragile. Kael finally sat opposite her. His gaze drifted toward the book. The Moon Queen. Elara nodded. I keep seeing her name. Something unreadable crossed his face. Most believe she was a myth. Do you? His answer came after a pause.
No.
The single word lingered between them. Heavy. Meaningful. Outside, snow continued falling. Inside, something else continued growing. Not merely attraction. Something deeper. More frightening. Connection. The kind neither knew how to stop. Kael found himself studying her again. The way she smiled at Ash. The way she listened when others spoke. The way she treated servants and nobles exactly the same. The kingdom saw weakness. He saw strength. A rare kind. The kind that never demanded recognition. The kind that survived suffering. and every day it became harder to look away, dangerously harder. Then suddenly, the library doors burst open. A royal guard entered, breathing heavily, face pale, fear visible. "Your Majesty." Kael immediately stood. "What happened?" The guard swallowed. "A messenger was captured at the eastern border." Silence. The room tightened. A king ruled through certainty. And certainty was something Kael no longer possessed, which made the choice even worse. Elara looked back at him. No anger, no hatred, only sadness. That sadness nearly shattered him, because she still believed he could do the right thing. And he wasn't sure he could. The silence stretched.
Long.
Painful. Endless. Then Kael finally spoke. His voice echoed through the hall.
Cold.
Controlled. Royal. "The kingdom cannot ignore accusations of treason." The words landed like stones. Elara's heart sank.
Kael continued.
Each sentence costing him more than anyone realized. The evidence remains unresolved. Pain flashed behind her eyes. He saw it immediately, and hated himself for causing it. Yet he couldn't stop. Duty tightened around his throat like chains. A king, a ruler, a protector. Those responsibilities had always come before personal desires. Always. Even now. Especially now. The hall remained silent. Waiting. Watching. Judging. Then Kael delivered the verdict. "The accused will not be executed." A ripple of surprise spread through the chamber. Several nobles protested instantly. Kael silenced them with a single look. His gaze returned to Elara. And for the first time, she saw the pain hidden behind his mask. Not enough, but enough to hurt. The punishment is exile. The world stopped. Elara felt the floor disappear beneath her. Exile, not death. Somehow worse, because death ended pain. Exile forced you to live with it. The words echoed repeatedly inside her mind. Exile.
Exile.
Exile. Ash suddenly whined from the side of the chamber. The sound cut through the silence. Heartbreaking. The pup pulled against the guards holding him back, trying to reach her, trying desperately. Kael looked away, unable to bear the sight, because Ash understood something the king had failed to protect. Someone innocent was being taken away. Snow continued falling outside. The kingdom remained silent. And for the first time in years, King Kael Draven hated his throne. As guards approached her, Elara lifted her eyes one final time, meeting his. The bond between them still existed. She could feel it, broken, bleeding, but alive, which somehow made everything worse. "You believe them," she whispered. The words were barely audible, yet Kael heard every syllable. His chest tightened painfully, because the truth was complicated. He didn't fully believe them, but he hadn't fully believed her either. And that failure would haunt him forever. Elara gave a small nod, as though finally understanding something. Not about the accusations. About him. About kings. About power. Then she lowered her gaze, and allowed the guards to lead her away. No fight. No tears. No pleading. Only silence. The kind that lingers long after someone leaves. Kael watched her disappear through the massive doors. And something inside him cracked. Not loudly, not visibly, but deeply enough to change everything. Far above the throne room, hidden in the shadows, Seraphine smiled. The Omega was gone. The bond was broken. The threat removed. At last, victory was hers. Or so she believed. Because beyond the kingdom's borders, beyond the mountains, beyond the frozen wilderness waiting in darkness, ancient powers had already begun awakening. And the exile of Elara was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of her transformation. Snow fell across the kingdom like silent ashes. By dawn, Draven Keep had become a fortress of white and black. Beautiful, cold, merciless, much like the king who ruled it. The royal court gathered beneath towering stone arches lit by hundreds of flickering torches. Nobles filled the chamber in layers of silk and jewels. Military commanders stood like statues along the walls. No one smiled. No one spoke above a whisper. The atmosphere felt wrong,
Heavy.
as if everyone sensed they were about to witness something irreversible. At the center of the hall stood Elara, alone. The silver chains around her wrists weren't heavy, yet they felt heavier than iron, because they represented something far worse than imprisonment. They represented doubt, and the one person she trusted most was the reason she stood there. Her gaze slowly lifted, finding Kael. The Alpha King sat upon the obsidian throne, expression unreadable, motionless, a king carved from stone. But beneath that stillness, chaos raged, because Kael hadn't slept, not after the library, not after the evidence, not after seeing the heartbreak in Elara's eyes. Every instinct inside him screamed that something was wrong. His wolf rejected the accusations, rejected the evidence, rejected the entire situation. Yet logic refused to disappear. The documents existed. The witnesses existed. The reports existed. Everything pointed toward guilt. Everything except his heart. And Kael had learned long ago that hearts made terrible rulers. So he sat upon his throne, trying to ignore the growing feeling that he was about to destroy something precious. Again, just like before, the memory of his dead mate lingered at the edge of his mind. A wound that never truly healed, a mistake he could never undo. And somehow, today felt frighteningly similar. A voice echoed through the hall. Present the evidence. The royal prosecutors stepped forward. One by one, the accusations were laid before the court. Letters, reports, witness testimonies. Every piece carefully crafted. Every lie polished until it resembled truth. The nobles reacted exactly as Seraphine expected. Outrage spread rapidly. Murmurs became arguments. Arguments became demands. The atmosphere grew increasingly hostile. Elara stood silently through it all, listening, watching, realizing how powerless truth could be. Nobody wanted answers. They wanted someone to blame. And she was convenient. A poor Omega. An outsider. A stranger who had somehow gained the king's attention. The perfect target. Her chest tightened. Not because of fear. Because of disappointment. For weeks, she had started believing things might be different here. That maybe she had finally found somewhere she belonged. Someone she could trust. How foolish. The court's voices grew louder. Traitor. Dangerous.
Spy.
The words struck harder than chains. Then another voice rose above the rest. Lady Seraphine. Elegant.
Calm.
Concerned. The perfect performance. No one wishes this outcome, she said softly. Every eye turned toward her. Even Kael's. Seraphine lowered her gaze, appearing almost saddened. Yet the kingdom must come first. The statement spread through the chamber like poison, because it sounded reasonable. And reasonable lies were always the most dangerous. Elara watched her. Something felt wrong. The woman's sadness looked too perfect, too controlled, too practiced. For the briefest moment, their eyes met. And Elara finally saw it. The truth. Not proof. Not evidence. Just instinct. But it was enough. The satisfaction hidden behind Seraphine's gaze. The victory. The calculation. The trap. Realization struck like lightning. This had never been about politics. It was personal. And somehow, she had become the target. Hours passed. Arguments continued. Evidence mounted. Pressure increased. Until eventually the chamber fell silent. Because everyone knew what came next. The king's decision. Kael slowly rose from the throne. The room instantly became still. No one breathed. No one moved. Even the flames seemed frozen. His gaze found Elara. And everything else disappeared. The court. The nobles. The kingdom. For one terrible moment, there was only her. The girl who ran into fire. The girl who smiled at ash. The girl who somehow made silence feel peaceful. The girl who had begun healing wounds she never created. And now he was expected to judge her. The cruelty of fate felt unbearable. His wolf snarled inside him, rejecting the entire situation. But a king could not rule through feelings. A king ruled through certainty. And certainty was something Kael no longer possessed, which made the choice even worse. Elara looked back at him. No anger, no hatred, only sadness. That sadness nearly shattered him, because she still believed he could do the right thing. And he wasn't sure he could. The silence stretched.
Long.
Painful. Endless. Then Kael finally spoke. His voice echoed through the hall.
Cold.
Controlled. Royal. The kingdom cannot ignore accusations of treason. The words landed like stones. Elara's heart sank.
Kael continued.
Each sentence costing him more than anyone realized. The evidence remains unresolved. Pain flashed behind her eyes. He saw it immediately, and hated himself for causing it. Yet he couldn't stop. Duty tightened around his throat like chains. A king, a ruler, a protector. Those responsibilities had always come before personal desires. Always. Even now. Especially now. The hall remained silent. Waiting. Watching. Judging. Then Kael delivered the verdict. The accused will not be executed. A ripple of surprise spread through the chamber. Several nobles protested instantly. Kael silenced them with a single look. His gaze returned to Elara. And for the first time, she saw the pain hidden behind his mask. Not enough, but enough to hurt. The punishment is exile. The world stopped. Elara felt the floor disappear beneath her. Exile, not death. Somehow worse, because death ended pain. Exile forced you to live with it. The words echoed repeatedly inside her mind. Exile.
Exile.
Exile. Ash suddenly whined from the side of the chamber. The sound cut through the silence. Heartbreaking. The pup pulled against the guards holding him back. Trying to reach her. Trying desperately. Kael looked away, unable to bear the sight. Because Ash understood something the king had failed to protect. Someone innocent was being taken away. Snow continued falling outside. The kingdom remained silent. And for the first time in years, King Kael Draven hated his throne. As guards approached her, Elara lifted her eyes one final time, meeting his. The bond between them still existed. She could feel it, broken, bleeding, but alive, which somehow made everything worse. You believe them, she whispered. The words were barely audible, yet Kael heard every syllable. His chest tightened painfully, because the truth was complicated. He didn't fully believe them, but he hadn't fully believed her either. And that failure would haunt him forever. Elara gave a small nod, as though finally understanding something. Not about the accusations. About him. About kings. About power. Then she lowered her gaze, and allowed the guards to lead her away. No fight. No tears. No pleading. Only silence. The kind that lingers long after someone leaves. Kael watched her disappear through the massive doors. And something inside him cracked. Not loudly. Not visibly. But deeply enough to change everything. Far above the throne room, hidden in the shadows, Seraphine smiled. The Omega was gone. The bond was broken. The threat removed. At last, victory was hers. Or so she believed. Because beyond the kingdom's borders, beyond the mountains, beyond the frozen wilderness waiting in darkness, ancient powers had already begun awakening. And the exile of Elara was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of her transformation. The gates of Draven keep closed behind Elara with a sound that echoed like the final chapter of a life she had once dared to believe in. The heavy iron doors slammed shut. The sound carried across the snow-covered valley. Cold. Final. Merciless. For several seconds, Elara stood completely still. Snow drifted through the air around her. The winter wind tugged at her cloak. Ahead stretched the northern wilderness. An endless kingdom of ice, mountains, frozen rivers, and darkness. Behind her stood everything she had lost. The castle. The wolf pup she loved. The home she never truly had. And him. Most of all him. Her chest tightened. Not because she wanted to cry. Because she was too exhausted for tears. The pain had moved beyond sadness. It had become something quieter. Something deeper. The kind of heartbreak that settles into the soul and refuses to leave. Slowly, she began walking. One step. Then another. The snow swallowed her footprints almost immediately, as if the world itself was erasing her existence. High above the kingdom, dark clouds gathered. A storm was coming, the kind travelers feared, the kind that killed. Yet Elara continued moving, because stopping meant freezing, and freezing meant dying. Hours passed, then days. The mountains grew steeper. The air became thinner, colder, crueler. Food became scarce. Sleep became impossible. Every night she dreamed of Draven Keep, of Ash, of Kael, and every morning she woke alone. The loneliness slowly became its own kind of enemy, one she could never escape. Sometimes she caught herself remembering small things. The way Ash used to curl against her side. The way Kael silently appeared whenever she wandered too far through the gardens. The way his voice changed when he spoke to her.
Softer.
Almost human. Those memories hurt more than the cold, because they reminded her that happiness had existed, briefly, before being taken away. Far away inside the Black Fortress, King Kael Draven was discovering that victory felt suspiciously similar to grief. The throne room remained full. The kingdom remained stable. The nobles remained satisfied. Everything should have been normal, yet nothing was. Ash stopped eating. The wolf pup spent entire days waiting beside the castle gates, whining,
Searching.
waiting for someone who never returned. The sight slowly destroyed Kael, because every time he looked at Ash, he saw himself, waiting, regretting, missing something he couldn't replace. His wolf had become restless again, violent, unstable. The peace Elara brought had vanished the moment she left. And now darkness was returning, stronger than before. One night Kael entered the empty garden where Elara used to spend her mornings. Snow covered everything. The flowers were gone. The benches sat abandoned beneath ice. Silence ruled the space. A brutal silence. He stared at the frozen ground. And for the first time in years, the Alpha King admitted something. He missed her. Not as a responsibility. Not as a mystery. Not because of the bond. He missed her. The realization terrified him, because it arrived too late. Weeks passed. Winter tightened its grip. The wilderness became deadlier. Yet something strange began happening. Elara stopped feeling alone. At first, she thought exhaustion was playing tricks on her. Small shadows appeared between trees. Silver eyes watching from the darkness. Large wolves. Ancient wolves. Unlike anything she had ever seen. They never attacked. Never approached. Only watched. Following her journey from a distance. Night after night. Day after day. As though waiting.
Testing.
Judging. Then one evening, during the worst blizzard she had faced yet, everything changed. The storm struck without warning. Wind screamed through the mountains. Snow swallowed the sky. Visibility vanished. Elara could barely breathe. Could barely see. Every step became torture. Her body trembled violently. Exhaustion consumed her. Eventually her legs gave out. She collapsed into the snow. The cold immediately wrapped around her.
Hungry.
Patient.
Deadly.
For the first time since her exile, fear overwhelmed her. Not fear of dying. Fear that everything had been meaningless. The fire, the bond, the love, the suffering. All of it. Meaningless. Her eyes slowly closed. Darkness crept closer. Then, a howl shattered the storm.
Deep.
Ancient. Powerful. The sound rolled across the mountains like thunder. Elara's eyes opened. The world around her suddenly glowed silver. Moonlight. Impossible moonlight. Even though the storm still raged, a figure emerged through the swirling snow. A woman. Radiant. Beautiful. Wrapped in flowing silver light. Her presence felt ancient. Older than kingdoms. Older than memory itself. Elara stared, breathless, because somehow, she already knew who stood before her. The first Moon Queen. The storm disappeared. Not physically. Yet somehow it no longer mattered. The world around them felt suspended between reality and dream. The Moon Queen approached slowly. Silver eyes filled with endless wisdom. Endless sorrow. endless strength. You finally came. Her voice sounded like moonlight itself.
Soft.
Powerful. Timeless. Elara's throat tightened. Who are you? The woman smiled sadly. You already know.
And she did.
Deep inside. She always had. The Moon Queen lifted her hand. Instantly dozens of glowing visions appeared around them. Ancient battles. Forgotten kingdoms. Wolf guardians. Queens crowned beneath silver moons. Generations of history. Secrets buried beneath centuries. And, at the center of every vision, the same bloodline. Elara's bloodline. Her heart began racing. No. The queen nodded. Yes. The truth arrived like lightning. Her ancestry. Her connection. The strange abilities she never understood. Everything suddenly made sense. You carry the blood of the first Moon Queen. The words echoed through eternity. Elara felt the world shift beneath her. Her entire life, she believed she was nobody. Disposable. Forgotten. Unwanted. Yet the truth had been hidden inside her all along. Not weakness.
Power.
Not insignificance. Legacy. Not abandonment.
Destiny.
Tears filled her eyes. The Moon Queen stepped closer, gently touching her forehead. A surge of energy exploded through Elara's body. Silver light erupted beneath her skin. The mountains trembled. The wolves howled. Ancient power awakened. Sleeping for centuries. Waiting for her. Waiting for this moment. Visions flooded her mind.
Healing.
Protection. Leadership. Strength. Not strength born from fear. Strength born from compassion. The rarest power of all. When the light finally faded, Elara stood transformed. Not physically,
but spiritually.
Emotionally. The frightened Omega girl was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone capable of changing kingdoms. Far away, inside Draven Keep, a messenger burst into Kael's private chambers. The king immediately rose. The man's face was pale, terrified, urgent. My king. Kael frowned. What is it? The messenger swallowed hard, then delivered the words that would shatter everything. We discovered evidence regarding Lady Seraphine. Silence. The room froze. The messenger continued. The documents used against Lady Elara. His voice trembled. They were forged. For one terrible second, Kael couldn't breathe. The world seemed to stop. Every fear, every doubt, every regret, all crashing together at once. The truth. The horrifying truth. Elara had been innocent. The realization struck like a blade through his chest. Because suddenly he understood something. He hadn't lost her because of fate, or politics, or destiny. He lost her because he failed her. And that failure would haunt him forever. The Alpha King's hands slowly clenched into fists. His eyes darkened. A storm far more dangerous than winter awakening inside him. Because somewhere beyond the mountains, the woman he loved had vanished. And now, no one could find her.